I have my son Abonte's Harley Davidson here. It has two issues. First off, it's a 2016 and it's got the original battery. Well, you do the math. It's over 7 years old. Battery shot. More important, well, it's got the factory exhaust system. We can't have that on Tech Garage. So join us as we upgrade this exhaust system, and at the end, we're gonna wake up this Harley and hopefully the neighbors too.
Man, oh man, we are revved up here on Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com. We always have cool cars in the studio, but we don't get motorcycles very often. John, you brought your son's bike in here. This is Abonte's. We love the bike, but a couple little issues with it. One thing, it's not cranking. At least not all the time.
Yeah, you know, it's a 2016 Road King, phenomenal bike. Took a look under the seat, and it's got the Harley battery. I mean, you guys can do the math. That's 6, 7 years old. Any battery, motorcycle or car, is just not going to last that long. No worries. RockAuto.com hooked us up with one. Went to their website, matched it up. Boom, that problem solved. Bigger problem though, Dave?
Yeah, well, it's a Harley Davidson, but it doesn't quite sound like a Harley ought to. It's not as loud as it should be, I guess. Not as mean as it should be.
Yeah, right. And loud pipes save life. So, I mean, really, you know, we're going to keep them safe. And we want it to breathe better. We want it to perform better. We're going to put an intake on it and exhaust system. You can see the stock system there. You know, it looked good. Everything was good. It sounded, well, listen to it. It didn't sound quite that great as this is going to sound, and Reinhardt Racing hooked us up with a new system, a completely new system. I mean, take a look at that, man. You actually have the header that goes down over to the crossover. You got the beautiful mufflers with the logo on the back. The little black inlay is phenomenal. And then we're going to put an air cleaner on it, man. That's really going to set this thing off, Dave. But, you know, the two of the exhaust, Benjamin and Bonte, well, they went right to it. It was pretty simple.
Yeah, John, first thing first, you had to be able to get to the exhaust. So we had to remove the saddlebags, and that's just kind of like a couple of bolts, a little bit like Zeus fasteners, quarter turn, pop both of those off, and the bags come right off.
Right, and then we went to the right floorboard, the actual where your foot goes down there, kind of in the way of the exhaust system, a couple of bolts, removed that, took the floorboard off so we can gain access to the exhaust system.
And now it's time to remove the actual muffler. That's just the back section there, so a clamp on the front and two bolts that are holding it up to a bracket on the bike, and those come right off.
Yeah, and that bolted right up to the crossover pipe, and that had to be removed. So I went up to the header, removed it from the crossover to the muffler back there you already had off. That was pretty easy. Once I got that separated, that come off, and then, you know, there was nothing left there but a bracket there, Dave.
And that bracket just came off with a couple of bolts, and the new kit came with another bracket, so we just take that bracket and throw it away.
Yeah, now let's say where you kind of want to slow down. We got up to the head of the motorcycle. We sprayed it with some PB Blaster a little bit earlier, made sure the bolts are coming off, took our time, got those off, and then we removed both of the brackets. It's twin on the front and the back. Got those off, and man, it was off to the races.
Well, and as you said, take your time with stuff like this. Anything, you know, chrome is involved here. You don't want to scratch it up and everything too. So just take your time when you're doing anything with a bike or with a car. Next step, removing the header and the oxygen sensor. We took the header off. That enabled us to actually reveal the oxygen sensor and take that out with no problem at all.
Yeah, and then we had to take the exhaust flanges off the exhaust system, the old exhaust system. Matter of just slipping them off of there and put them on the new system. It didn't come with it, but those are the exhaust flanges that bolt up to the head, so you know you're going to have a perfect fit every time, and it's going to be sealed. There's not going to be any problems.
Now, the old gasket was kind of heat checked there, so once we got the header off, we pretty much had to scrape that thing off with a spatula. We grabbed a pair of pliers and yanked it out of there. The new kit comes with a new gasket anyway.
Yeah, and we were using the OEM oxygen sensor, but Reinhardt Racing was kind enough to give us another hole there if we want to use a wideband or some different oxygen sensors. So we had to plug that up. They give us everything to do it with. We plugged that up. We're using the factory one. Yes, we'll tune it. Yes, we'll get it right, but it's a good way to do it.
Yeah, and just reversing the process there from there. Once you put everything back on, you put the gasket back on, you put the header, crossover pipes with the bracket, and that's just about finish the deal in reverse order.
Yeah, you don't have a lot to do, but you know, I live the dream here at Tech Garage. I get to work with my son every day, and God knows I cherish every minute of it. But Dave, I think I'll leave this one to you. You don't have much left, and I don't want to get dirty.
Well, of course, you don't want to get dirty. Any chance to work with a gardener is a good day. Abonte's in here to actually help me finish up up the exhaust project here. And it's just as simple as putting the muffler back on. Avante, we're just putting it back on the pipe there. And we've already put the clamp here on the front. We slid it up forward, and we're going to slide it back to meet the pipe. Why'd you guys choose Reinhardt?
Well, we chose Reinhardt because a couple of my buddies who ride really loves the sound. Reinhardt has a very unique sound, and that's what I wanted on my bike.
All right, sounds a big part of the deal when you're riding a Harley Davidson here. Now we've slid it in, and it needs a little coaxing with the rubber mallet there. We're just trying to line up the two holes on the actual muffler itself with the bracket. They give you a new bracket as well. We're going to finish that up. Those two bolts will be able to draw the muffler up to the bracket. We don't want any rattling. We don't want anything to come loose while we're riding this bike. We're also going to put an air cleaner on this. And when we come back, John Gardner's going to tell you what an air cleaner and an exhaust system actually does. You don't want to miss it. You're really going to dig that demo. When we come back, the Tech Garage presented by RockAuto.com.
Well, we hope you're enjoying this episode of Tech Garage. I know we are. But you can also tune in to Motorhead Garage. Dave, you're a man of multi-talents, and Motorhead Garage, well, that's a great show.
Well, the show's great because we show you all the latest technology and all the coolest aftermarket gear for your vehicle. It's the only place on TV that does that, John.
Yeah, make sure you check them out on Sunday mornings at
8:30 a.m. only on Motor Trend. Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com, is brought to you by Clamp Tight, the clamp making tool. And by RockAuto.com, all the parts your car will ever need.
Well, welcome back to Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com. Well, Dave told you we were going to show you what an intake and exhaust system does, and we are going to do just that with the coolest demos in the planet. Let's start out with an engine. What is an engine and why do we have them? Well, it's a giant air pump, really. That's what it is, and I can show it to you in action. Coming down here is the first stroke. The piston's on its way down and the intake valve opens. You can see the camshaft up here running them. As it opens, well, what's happening? You're creating a vacuum and you're actually sucking the air into the cylinder. That's what the intake's in there for. Now we come up, we compress it, and then bang, the spark hits and we go down. Now this stroke is the last stroke. It's coming up. This is the exhaust stroke. That's why we need a good exhaust system. We come up, we have to push and exhaust all that. So once again, you got the intake coming up, squeezing, compression, bang, spark fires, that's the power stroke, and then there's our exhaust coming out. Now, intake and exhaust play a critical role. A lot of people don't realize. Good set of headers, and you can see it here with this animation. You have pulses at the end, and they all reach at the same time, and that creates a vacuum, actually taking some of that exhaust out of the cylinder and helping out. Now, I can show you some good exhaust, some bad exhaust, some good intake, and some bad intake systems. We'll start right here with the factory intake system. You see all these bumps right here? Well, that's not a good thing. That's going to cause restriction. You're sitting there in the engine compartment, you're creating heat. That's not as good as cold air, so that's a problem. So what do we want to do? Well, we want to get this tune port where it's nice and smooth, and or you just put a cold air intake system on. Look at the difference between these two right here. You can actually see that. This one's small, that one's big. It's going to make a lot of flow, and you actually have the nice flow right here that you don't have any ridges or anything. The bend's smooth, you're gonna get it in. And also you have a high flow air filter. So you can even have intake systems, and this is pretty cool animation. You can see where it actually switches, and when it switches, it's actually going from long runners to short runners. Well, what's that all about? Well, it's like a human. When an engine's running really, really hard, you want to take a deep breath. If I'm idling, well, not so much. So that's pretty cool. Let's switch gears and talk a little bit about exhaust systems. Now, exhaust systems, once again, you can see here an old exhaust system versus the new. Big difference in diameter. We want to get it out. We're getting it in, we want to get it out. So here's the deal. If you have a factory system like this, well, you look inside of there, and bam, you got all these chambers and paths. It's going to be quiet, but the problem is you're just not going to get the airflow you need to get out of the system. So what do? Well, you get a high flow exhaust system like this one here. You get the big pipe, and then if you look inside of here, this is all the baffle material. Let's trash that so you can see what's going on. Man, look at that confetti. We don't need that. Boom, straight through. You're going through that. You're getting the exhaust out of the car. Now you can go as far as even having one of these cherry bombs. We got this at RockAuto.com, and boy, if you look through that joker right there, wow, I can actually see clean through it with just a little bit of material on the outside. That's gonna let it flow out. and it's important to get the exhaust out. You can look at this animation right here. You may even have a dual path exhaust. That's pretty wild. Think about it. The air's coming in and it's going out. It has to go through multiple chambers, and cars are computerized today, so when it goes faster and you want to get the exhaust out, or perhaps you want more power, then it's going to switch those chambers, and when it switches those chambers, you can see it's actually going through another path and it's getting out. You also have those cars today, you can push that button and you can actually switch those chambers just for the sound, so it sounds really good. So remember, an engine's nothing more than a big air pump. We got to get it in. That's our intake system. Once we get it in, we want cold air. Cold air is more dense. I can get it in there. Once I get it in there, that volumetric efficiency is going to fill that cylinder. Bang, more air, more fuel, a bigger bang. Then what? I have to get it out. Why? That next stroke's coming around. I want a free-flowing exhaust system, I want a big exhaust system, and I want to be able to flow it through the exhaust system. So that's key when it comes to actually intakes and exhaust. Speaking of that, let's see how Dave's coming along with the bike's intake and exhaust.
Just like you said, John, here with the bike, we're going to put more air out with the exhaust system. That means we need to get more air in, so a new air cleaner is in order here. Now, we've done most of the work here. The first thing we had to do was remove the old air cleaner cover. One bolt right in the center, and that was easy enough. If you can take out bolts and put bolts back in, you can replace an air cleaner on a bike like this. Second step, remove the air cleaner itself. Only 3 bolts for that. Then we came to the air cleaner housing. We had to remove the bolts there. 3 little ones, 2 big ones, and of course, they're all different sizes, so we had to have a different bit for each one of them, but we had them all. Installing the new Reinhardt Racing air cleaner housing was really easy. The thing looks great, by the way. 5 bolts to put that back on, and then once we get to the cover, here's where we are. 6 bolts to do that. We want to put thread locker on these ones. This is a medium thread locker. It's this will enable us to take this back off if we need to. So the blue is the medium, a little bit of goo on there, and we are good to go. And that'll hold it tight there because bikes vibrate a lot. We want to make sure this doesn't shake loose. We've got one remaining spot here. And we'll crank this down, and we will be ready to go. When we come back, we've got our Keep It or Crush It segment. We always love doing that. And we're going to fire this bike up. And I bet you, as John promised, we're going to wake up the neighbors. We'll be right back with more Tech Garage presented by RockAuto.com. Don't go anywhere. This is Tech Garage presented by RockAuto.com. We're out in the Florida sunshine. It's about 183 degrees out here. Yeah, so we want to keep this quick. We're inspecting one of the vehicles that we found and we showed you a few weeks ago, deciding if we're going to keep it or crush it. That's right. So this one looks like a keeper. We could flip this one. We might make this a daily driver, John, because I already checked this out. I drove it here. It's in good mechanical condition. Actually purrs like a kitten for a 1987 F-250. So it runs really well. It looks like it's in pretty good shape, and I really think all that needs to be done is to kind of gussy it up and clean it up around the edges.
Yeah, and I love that word, gussy it up, Dave. We're talking about just dressing it up as well, but you know, once again, visual inspection, body lines, rust, nothing there. Everything seems to be in good shape. Structural damage with the frame, went under, took a peek, nothing to it. So this one's probably just a gussy upper, if that's a word, but hey,
it is now.
We'll get it to it, you know, but you know, to gussy it up though, we have to make sure we can get the parts what we need.
And I think RockAuto.com, they are the place to turn for all the parts your car will ever need, but it's not just parts, you know, alternators and that sort of thing. Some of the accessories and some of the trim pieces we need, they have them as well. And I'm going to go check in with Tom, mostly because there's air conditioning in there, but also I want to know what we have for this vehicle.
Exactly. If you didn't know this about Dave, he'd rather shovel snow than being out in the heat. I'm all right with the heat. So anyway, let's take a look under the hood here. So if I pop the hood right here and I look under there, for you Ford fans, this is a win. We're talking about the 6-cylinder, the inline 6, one of the bulletproof motors of the vehicles. This is great. Everything looks factory under here. Alternator looks new, nothing butchered up. In good shape. Now, of course, we'd have to take it into the shop and do the full visual inspection. We'll do that next week and show you what's going on, get a little bit deeper with that inspection. But for right now, this is definitely a keeper. We'll be able to flip this and either make some money or drive it. The point is, gussy it up. We want to get some bed rails, maybe some mirrors, fix these headlights, but we got to check in with Tom and Dave and see what they found.
Hanging out here at the RockAuto.com desk, and Tom, I'm glad you're here for lots of reasons. Mostly because there's air conditioning in here, so thanks for rescuing me from the outside duty here. I got cleaned up and everything, and I checked the emails here. We've got one from Scott from Tampa, Florida. He says he has a 2018 Chevy Corvette, and parts are hard to come by. He usually ends up at the dealer and pays way too much, and he wants to know if he can find parts with GM parts numbers on rockauto.com.
Right, yeah, we have a part number search box where you just enter the part number that you see on the part or you have. And a vehicle like that, 2018 Chevy Corvette, you just look it up in our catalog, and we have all the parts that fit that specific vehicle. And then over in our tools and universal parts section, we have parts even for ATVs, motorcycles, like this little battery here.
Yeah, and it's a battery actually for the Harley Davidson that we've been working on. Found out we needed one. John went and found all the specs on the battery. It's listed there on the label. He typed all that in and it came right up. And I actually didn't know you could ship batteries. I didn't know there was a possibility.
Yeah, the new absorb glass mat AGM batteries, they don't leak, they resist vibration. They've been used for years by four-wheelers and such. So yeah, we can ship those right to your door.
Very cool. And we have, of course, the Harley battery there. This is one for a Ford F-150. We have a GM battery here with the posts on the front. And this is a little thing that actually I was not made aware of till John showed me here. A little bit of a vent there.
Yeah, a lot of newer cars have the battery in the trunk or under the back seat, and so you need to vent any gases that might be released out of the vehicle. So it'll come with a little nipple that you can move from the left to right side depending on your vehicle, and you hook be careful to disconnect the hose and hook the hose up when you replace the battery.
RockAuto.com has all the parts your car will ever need. It's not just a slogan. They've even got batteries, by the way. And Tom, thanks for coming in and letting me enjoy the air conditioning. When we come back, we're going to be talking air conditioning. John's going to break it all down when we return to Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com. Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com, is brought to you by Steel Rubber Products, quality crafted rubber parts and weather stripping, and by RockAuto.com, all the parts your car will ever need.
This is Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com. We are in our Garage Ed segment, and this week it's all about condensers. What is a condenser? Where is it? Why do we even have one? Well, let's start with our graphic and see if we can figure it out.
Yeah, you know, in our graphic, we have to go all the way back through the system. You remember the evaporator was located inside the vehicle, and what happened, the blower motor went over it, and the actual refrigerant jumped on that, took a ride over to the compressor, and what the compressor did, it changed those pressures, and when it changed those pressures, it increased temperature immensely. It's the hottest part of the system, coming out of the compressor, going over to the condenser. For that reason, we have it super, super hot, and the outside air is not so hot, so heat jumps from surface to heat to less heat, bam, it jumps off and it goes to the outside air. But Josh, you got some tips when it comes to the condenser.
Right, our AC system, what we have are restrictions in there, the orifice tube and TXV, so we can drop pressure so we can get it cold. Well, if you have a restriction in your condenser, it's going to do the same thing, but it's not by design. It's going to mess up your efficiency. So what you can do is you can run your hand across the condenser. If you feel any cold spots, you know you have a restriction in that spot. Something else that you can do, if you have some external fins, this one doesn't have it, but you have external fins on your condenser, and you might have a kid who, like I was, and I started putting my initials in there, it messes up your heat transfer to the outside air. You can get a comb and you can go over those fins and try to straighten them back out.
Well, it's a good thing your name wasn't Cornelius, or you would have had no AC.
That's right.
What about the inlet and outlet? Does that temperature make a difference?
It does. So what you can do is you can also take a pyrometer, check the inlet and outlet coming in. It's going to be hot. It gives off some heat to the outside air. Shoot it. It's going to be less hot. That's one way to tell.
That's for sure. And we talked about convection. That's actually speeding up the process of changing those states. Remember the condenser and the mirror analogy? You take a shower and you get all this gas on your mirror, and then it starts to cool down, it turns into a liquid. Well, that's what's happening. Well, if you put a fan on there, it's going to happen a lot more efficiently. So you may have two types of fans. You can have an electric coolant fan that looks like this. It's driven electrically, obviously, or you can have one that's a mechanical fan. This one's actually driven here with a viscous clutch. It's a silicone clutch, and it drives and it actually pulls air through there, so you can speed up convection and you speed up that process. Speaking of speeding things up, Dave's wrapping this thing up. Let's check in with him.
Johnny, we've got the air cleaner changed and the exhaust system changed, and that changes the airflow in and out of the engine. Of course, with an internal combustion engine, you've got fuel, you need air, and you need a spark. If you're changing the airflow, you need to change the fuel flow as well. That means we need to adjust the tune on this bike.
Absolutely, and DynoJet, they actually sent over a program. You can hook it up to your laptop. This is cool. They work great with Reinhardt Racing because we could select the exhaust. We went ahead and selected the air cleaner and then what the bike was, and bam, we had the tune in there. But one step further, we actually have learning capabilities. So we'll fine tune it, drive it, and make sure it's in good shape so the bike's not lean.
What happens when an engine leans out?
Well, when an engine's lean, it's dangerous, man. You burn pistons, it's not a good situation. So you might want to make sure it self-tunes. Well, Bonte, this is your deal, buddy. So it's your bike, so you get the honors. I mean, we put a lot of work into it. Let's hear what it sounds like.
I love it.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, it sounds phenomenal. I love it, but I love you even more. So you got to ride safe. You guys got to put a helmet on, your gear. Go out there. You got the handlebars, air cleaner, exhaust. You are going to be rolling, my boy.
Well, we've got to get rolling because that's the end of this episode of Tech Garage, but we're going to do it once again next week. In the meantime, you can find us on social media, John.
Yeah, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, wherever there's automotive repairs going on,
We will be there.
we will be there. And we'll also be here next week. And please join us for more Tech Garage, brought to you by RockAuto.com. Wow, this thing sounds great. Love it.
We could not do Tech Garage without production assistance from Chipola College in Marianna, Florida. Chipola was founded in 1947 and it was recently ranked among the top 3 community colleges in the United States.